We welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, with that beautiful mane of silvery hair atop his head, 3 Super Bowl rings to his name, 3-time Pro Bowler, gets to sit up there and eat beef jerky with Brian Jones on a regular basis, which is, in and of itself, just a tremendous day at work. He is Randy Cross. Randy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. You can play Journey anytime for me. It takes me back to the days at the Cow Palace the week after the Dallas championship game when Steve Perry brought about a dozen of us up, and they played "Don't Stop Believin'" and a couple other songs, and we got to be up there with them. It was a rush. We always thought crowds were a thrill on a football field. Wow, try a concert.
Isn't it true, Randy, that athletes want to be musicians and musicians want to be athletes?
Yeah, throw actors in there too.
Yeah.
Actors, rappers, everybody wants to be another end of the entertainment business, it seems. But I tell you what, that's a different feeling now when people are going crazy and screaming. It's great at games, don't get me wrong, but it's different for those guys.
Oh, it's amazing. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Separate Ways video, the music video they did for it, but if you get a chance, look it up. It's one of the greatest music videos in the history of creation. They're literally in a warehouse playing air instruments. The keyboardist is playing the wall at one point. I'm telling you, it is one of the most amazing videos you'll ever see. Steve Perry is emoting he's like basically William Shatner out there. It was.
Now wait now. Don't get too far over your skis, bringing Shatner.
I'm just saying he emoted like William Shatner emoted. So.
So it was all over the top.
It was. Yeah. Just telling you, look up the Separate Ways music video and get back to me. I think you'll enjoy the heck out of that. Randy, tell me a little bit about. I'm curious because you obviously spent your entire career with the 49ers, and so there's this obviously has a special meaning for you, but what is the emotional stake for a guy who was with a franchise that long, this far removed from your playing career, but having that team go back to the title game, to the Super Bowl? What's the emotion like for you?
Well, it's kind of special to see them be able to do this. I'll be honest, and you've known me for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 7 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl in New Orleans against Baltimore, it got pretty personal when they lost because, the previous 5 Niner teams had won.
Right.
And I have pretty close tied to most of that. But, it's right now, I think it's just such an amazing story that, you'd go from Shanahan and Lynch and Jed York and that partnership that was born 3 years ago and how quickly it's paid off. And the fact that this team has gone from four wins a year ago to potentially 16 wins this year is just, it's storybook stuff because teams don't do this. It's always, it's a 4-year process or it takes this long to get good. These guys got really good really fast once they got healthy.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in a day and age where we're seeing a lot of kind of revolutionary offense, you're seeing a lot of the spread concepts that kind of started in college football and are making their way up to the pros now. It's kind of a retro offense that's doing it. It's zone blocking. It's what we saw the Denver Broncos winning their championships with under Shanahan's dad. The zone blocking, the cutbacks, the play action stuff is that fun for you to see? I mean, obviously you're an offensive lineman, so I know that part is fun for you. But is it kind of cool to see a team running a bit of a retro offense that's having this kind of success?
It's unbelievable to see how much imagination that Shanahan's brought into the whole thing. He and his offensive coaches, and that's not taking anything away from the guys on the defensive side, but offensively, the variations they have on formations and motions and personnel groupings. It is fun to watch. And the fact that they run it that much, I'll be honest, you look like a stat sheet and you see 6 of 8 passing at the end of a game. That's Bob Greasy and the Dolphins stuff back in the early 70s. No one's done that for a while. But, I think you look at what Shanahan's done, and you look at the concepts he uses on the passing side, it's every bit as creative as anything anybody else is doing, college or pro. It's just he's very convinced, just like his dad was, but as much as anybody I've seen in a while, if you don't stop me from doing something, I'm just going to keep doing it. And the last couple of weeks, they just haven't stopped him from running the ball, and he's just said, okay, I won't have to show my whole game plan then.
Yeah, and why not? And it's interesting because you were a guy who was kind of into or kind of born into a revolutionary offense in your own right with what Bill Walsh was doing in San Francisco. What was that like? I'm kind of curious because no one else was running the West Coast stuff. His the horizontal approach to the passing game, stuff that no one else was really doing. What was it like being involved in that, and maybe even some of the conversations you'd have with defensive guys when you're on the field about the numbers that Montana was putting up back in those days?
Yeah, it was fun, to be honest. It was kind of like stealing. The so-called, glitterati that ran football back then, both in the media and football. That was back in the days of, East Coast football. It was 3 yards. It was, you had to go toe to toe and beat the crud out of each other. And, Bill Walsh kind of looked at that and went, well, no, you don't really have to do that. You can do some different stuff. And that's what that offense brought. People are still running concepts off of that offense. And I think being involved in it the way we were, it was a double-edged sword, to be honest with you, Patrick. I mean, it was great. It worked really, really well. And you had to be able to deal with kind of the condescending, looking down your nose, well, it's just not, it's not the Redskins or Giants running game.
This isn't football.
Yeah. I mean, all these guys out of the East Coast, all these riders and whatnot, and it's still going to this day, just kind of that left-hand compliment all the time for anything that's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I find it kind of ironic, the team that they sort of accused of being finesse football for so many years, for a couple decades, is now coming out and hitting people between the eyes.
Yeah, they're the smash mouth team. Talking to Randy Cross, three-time Super Bowl champion, college football analyst for CBS. I know you mentioned there were a lot of kind of cookie cutter offenses back in the day. Everything was ground and pound. There was traps and whams and all that stuff going on. Do you appreciate what seems to be a creative renaissance in terms of offensive football that we're seeing at the college level and into the NFL?
Yeah, I really do. I think being a guy that was, I did NFL football for about 20 years,
mm-hmm.
and the last 10 or so I've done on the college side. And, not to start jumping in too deep, but I was very glad to see over the last few years that the NFL has cured their case of craniorectalitis and decided to start running a lot of the offensive stuff from college, that they're paying these young guys millions and millions of dollars. And for decades, they sort of said, well, you adjust to us.
Right.
And, if you don't make it, well, that stuff happens. Well, as the money's gone up, they've decided that, let's keep the imagination going. Let's bring some of these college guys into the pro game. Let's get some of their coaches. Let's get the players and let them start doing the stuff that, heaven forbid you get a guy that's been playing football since the 8th grade, and he gets to the pros. So, man, that means he's been playing, 8 years of this style of football, 8 or 9 years at this time, and you're going to get him into something he knows nothing about. How much sense does that make? It never has, and now it's just fantastic to see some of the stuff, whether it's, what they're doing in Baltimore or Kansas City or, the Rams and McVay last year. It's fantastic, and I think it's better for the young players, and I think for everybody involved, it's more entertaining. The offensive styles that we're seeing right now are, it's about as much fun as you could possibly ask for without just being completely defenseless, because the rules basically almost make it that way.
Yeah.
But there are teams that are an exception, the Niners being one of those with their defense.
That's one of the things. I look at a guy like Joe Burrow, and obviously you were up close and personal watching Joe Burrow, just like the rest of us, have one of the best seasons a quarterback's ever had in college. And then he's likely going to be drafted by the Bengals, and he moves forward. And I wonder, is Zach Taylor going to be smart enough to put in an offense? Like Joe Burrow barely ever went under center. So are you going to make him turn into a drop back passer? And I see, we see Drew Brees now, who was the ultimate drop back passer, and Sean Payton, kind of a West Coast guy. Now they're in the shotgun all the time. I worry that a guy like Joe Burrow goes and they try to, as you say, fit him into their system as opposed to trying to fit their system into what he does well.
Yeah, that's always a problem in the NFL, and there are still enough rockheads out there in coaching staffs and organizations in the NFL that are going to say it's our way or the highway. They're still out there. But I've got to imagine Cincinnati, and especially some of those younger guys that are on that staff now, are going to be more than willing to see if because what Burrow does best is what the NFL lives by. It's their bread and butter, and I think they're going to love him at the next level. And I would anticipate whoever he ends up with, Cincinnati included, they're going to adjust to Joe Burrow a lot more than Joe Burrow's going to adjust to them.
I would hope so. Talking to Randy Cross, three-time Super Bowl champion. All right, let's talk about this game. You mentioned you were in the NFL forever, now kind of dipped into college football. You got to see a guy like Patrick Mahomes when he was at Texas Tech. We saw what he did there. And I know a lot of people necessarily didn't think he would turn into what he's become. But the creativity you mentioned, Andy Reid, who's been in the game for a long time, is as creative a mind as there is. You've already talked a lot about Shanahan and that offense. When you break this game down, what do you look at? What are the key matchups in your mind?
Well, you got to start with him, and you got to start with somehow, some way affecting him when it comes to when he wants to throw, and whether that's in the pocket or on the run. They've got the talent up front with San Francisco, but that's going to be a hell of a challenge, is affecting Mahomes, because when you can run to your right or run to your left and throw the other way across your body, behind your head, or however it seems he wants to throw at times. Yeah. Defenses don't sleep well when you have to play that kind of guy. And you look at Kelsey and the rest of the talent that they've got getting him the ball. There's no coincidence the way guys get wide open against defenses with those guys playing, because they've got that kind of talent. Because everybody starts with 15. Everybody starts with the quarterback. And when you get so myopic and you're only worried about him, that's when the rest of them are going to kill you. So that'd be my advice to the Niner defense and everybody associated with it, is have all the respect in the world for Patrick Mahomes, but don't figure he's the start and the end when it comes to that offense. Andy Reid's too good of a football coach for that to happen.
You mentioned that Kyle Shanahan and the creativity of that offense, because they'll come out in a lot of formations, a lot of two tight ends, but they do so much window dressing. They're moving guys across the formation. They love to boot one way and slip a guy out to the other direction behind the line of scrimmage. All that stuff. Is there an advantage to Kansas City's defense having had a couple of weeks to prepare for that, or is it just simply too much to really prepare for?
No, I think there's an advantage. Anytime you get extra time to prepare, it's better. And, they're doing the RPO. They're doing a lot of the same spread concepts with two tight ends and fullbacks personnel-wise. So that gets them some interesting matchups. I think the most fun watching this offense for San Francisco play against a defense is to put yourself in the middle linebacker or the safety position and look at their personnel, watch their motion, watch the formations they get into. And, after the fact, when you see a replay, you go, well, how come the holes are so big inside on some of those inside zones? Or how come they get the edge so easy? Well, you go back to the formations and you go back to the personnel and you go back to the motion. It's just the defense has got to react. They've got to move people around, and when they do that, that creates space. And, whether it's going to be San Francisco or Kansas City, it's not going to be all about space. Because if you give these guys space, you're in some serious trouble.
Do you have a prediction for the game?
Yeah, I beginning of the week when this whole thing, or I should say the whole process, about a week ago or so, I was, last second field goal and whatnot. I think Kansas City is going to be Kansas City, and I think the Niners and that defense, anytime you get in a big game and you've got a good defense, no matter who the offenses are, I'm going to go with that team. And yeah, I'm semi-biased.
Sure.
But I like the Niners by 2 touchdowns by the time I think it's all done.
Nice. I like it. Hey, look, a man with your background and your hair, you can certainly predict anything you want. Nobody's going to tell you anything.
Gotta have the flow, Patrick.
Oh.
That ain't enough journey. We'll be good.
Yeah, look, all I know is everybody on the Inside College Football set at CBS is jealous of your flow. There's no doubt about it.
I remind them on a regular basis, but thank you.
Good, as you should. Randy, thanks so much, man, and enjoy the game on Sunday.
All right, thank you.
All right, Randy Cross, 3-time Super Bowl champ, Inside College Football member on CBS Sports Network.